people and the dogs that bring them together. This is episode number 9. My name is Bill, and you're tied to the Woe Post. This past week has been a lot of fun. We got our Embark Breed Plus health test results back, and it turns out that Skeet's free and clear of the over 230 different health risks that they test for. We did learn some interesting information about Skeet, though. So both of her parents passed down a variant in the GPT gene. It's causing lower ALT levels. ALT is used to measure liver health. So Skeet's levels are going to test generally lower than an average dog. This is good information for our vet because if her levels tested high or high average or even the mid-range of average, that could be evidence of liver damage. This has been a trend in our small Munsterlander breeder network. Almost all of our dogs have had that GPT variant. To learn more about your dog's health, there's an affiliate link in the description. And speaking of Skeet, we're on, day 12 or so of force fetch. So we're off the table and forcing using vibrate on the e-collar to bucks and bumpers in the mid to high grass. We're doing it 2 to 3 times per day in short 10 to 15 minute sessions. Skeet's having a lot of fun with this. I'll probably take a video and post it later on today. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can share it with a friend, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or go to patreon.com/thewopost and become a patron. You can contact me on Facebook or Instagram at The Woe Post or by email bill@thewopost.com. And you can check out my new website, www.thewopost.com. Today I'm discussing Gordon setters with Debbie Petersen and Stephen Faust. This is a great conversation with 2 Gordon, grouse, and woodcock experts, so I had to break it into 2 parts. This is part 1. Part 2 will be published later this week. Debbie is a high school science teacher and freelance scientist who grew up around hunting but really started bird hunting at grad school. Stephen is a full-time trainer and guide and the owner of Stony Brook Outfitters, guiding hunts in North Carolina, Virginia, and Minnesota. Both are permitted woodcock banders with a history of nearly 30 years banding chicks and the occasional hen, and both are grouse and woodcock guides at the famous Pine Ridge Grouse Camp. Hey guys, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for having us.
Debbie, if you wouldn't mind starting, can you just tell us a little bit about your background, kind of who you are, where you come from, how you started out with bird dogs, and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, I grew up in the UP, which is kind of a grouse and woodcock mecca. But we didn't really do much upland hunting until I was in college. And I was actually working, I have a degree in biology, and I was working for my professor on a woodcock project. And I ran into a guy that was running English setters, and he was from Pennsylvania. He said, "Do you want to come hunting with me?" Because this was in the fall. And I said, "Well, I'm not allowed to hunt, on the study plot, but I can go with you." And I went out with this guy, and he ran this brace of beautiful English setters, and they were steady to wing and shot, and they were wearing bells. I mean, it was just quite romantic, as you can imagine. And it was 2 years later that I got my first pointing dog, and I kind of went through all the different breeds, and I really do love setters. And I met a Gordon setter, and I just absolutely fell in love with them and never looked back. So that bird dog's name, that dog's name was Bogey, and so that's why I named my dog Bogey. And so that was 25 years ago. So I've had Gordons for 25 years now, and I just kind of was, a hobbyist for a long time. Just, I would train the dogs, and we would go hunting and all that. Never steady to wing and shot or anything like that. And then I got involved with Jerry at Pine Ridge. I called him up because I knew that, they were having this banding clinic, and I had always been interested in doing it. And I didn't even know there was a program in Minnesota. And I called him up, and it's amazing how one phone call can change, everything. And I went there and I met him, and he checked out my dog and gave me, information, and took me 2 weeks to get my dog steady to wing and shot, tested him out, and the rest is history. We started, banding and then guiding for Jerry at Pine Ridge, and using dogs for research because I do research for the University of Minnesota also. So yeah, that's my story.
And I'm sticking to it.
Do you think that maybe when 25 plus years ago, when you got your first invitation to go hunting, that the other hunter was just trying to get access to the study plot that you had?
Oh no, that was public land. Yeah, it was
Right,
public
right.
land. And yeah, he was a super nice guy, and I learned a lot from him, and yeah, he gave me some woodcock to eat, so that was really nice. But I wish I could remember the guy's name. All I remember is that he was from Pennsylvania.
Was woodcock your first game bird that you ate?
No, I mean, my dad he would go grouse hunting. I don't think I ate a woodcock until that project, because my professor, we had a woodcock house in that area in the UP, where we would all go and stay, and we would try all these different recipes for woodcock, including some of the French ones where you have the intestines and stuff in there.
Hmm.
I wasn't a big fan of that, but yeah. So rough grouse was the first.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think for a lot of us, woodcock is one of the last ones that we try. And once we figure it out, we realize, hey, it's actually not bad. It's pretty
Mhm.
decent if you do it right. Right.
Yep.
Well, also on the line, we've got Steven. Steven, can you get into your background a little bit?
Sure thing, sure. So, my name is Stephen Faust. I grew up hunting. Dad grew up hunting, so we're multi generational. I didn't really have a choice. I grew up helping Dad train the labs. We had hunting labs and field trial labs as a kid. I know there's another podcaster that loves to say we all started in the same place. And I always giggle and say, well, unless we all started as 5-year-old riding in the trunk of our dad's car out to the training grounds. No, we didn't. That's how I got my start as training as a 5-year-old. And when Dad would put the dogs in the kennel, in the trunk of his sedan to ride out to the field. And I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. So it's funny, where we used to train now is a huge shopping mall. But I would, jump in the trunk of the car with both the labs, and we'd ride out there. I would place the blind retrieves and things like that. I'd run out there 200-300 yards. Um, and we had, like I said, the labs. We had beagles that we hunted for rabbits. As I got older, well, actually, my friend Lehman, he had beagles and hounds that we hunted deer over. He had hounds that we hunted bears over. Um, and that's, very interesting. Of course, we had the bird dogs that we bird hunted with, and then it was Eastern North Carolina. It was all wild quail and woodcock. And Mom and Dad were stationed in Germany in the early '60s for 3 years, and Dad was a lieutenant in the Army, so he earned his German hunting license. But over there is a big deal,
Sure, yeah.
so he could hunt. And while he was stationed over there, he had a wire hair that he bought from a guy on the farm over there. And, not his favorite dog. I'll be nice and just leave it there. Um, but he, he shot he shot waterfowl over there. I guess pheasants, Hungarian. He said partridge were everywhere, and woodcock, and the big game hunted too. He shot roe deer and boar. But the birds were just always our favorite. Deer. Eastern North Carolina was not it was not a big deal to shoot deer. When I was coming up, when Dad was, the deer were just recovering still. But so I've always been into dogs. We did a lot of waterfowling. We hunted. Dad hunted everything, and I was lucky. I got to go along. So as I got older, and I would probably say early teens. I got a picture. It's from January 1983, so I would have been 13 or 14, however old I was. 13, whatever, 15, maybe 15. Anyway, and that's when I really turned into just wanting to bird hunt. I had 9 quail and 4 woodcock, and I believe it was one bird each from a double limit And I don't remember that day in particular. I don't remember the first quail or the first woodcock or the first grouse I shot, but I remember the first time I saw a bunch of dogs pointing a Kodiak quail. And when they flushed, I was hooked. It was like, that was the most amazing thing I ever saw in my life. And I went to college in the mountains of North Carolina in the late 80s. Still had a great grouse population. So one weekend I went home and grabbed my old setter, and by then she was, I don't know, 12, 13. And I took her back and snuck her back up to school, and we tried to figure out how to hunt grouse with no, you couldn't YouTube stuff back then. You just go out and walk in the woods and see what happened. So I shot some grouse and just, I never looked back. I love to be in the forest. I love the woods. I love the trees, and just something about grouse and woodcock just talks to me. I love the individuality of the birds, even though you do find them in groups sometimes. You got that one needle in a haystack you're out there looking for. So just, we always had growing up, we had English setters and English pointers as far as the bird dogs. And Dad had setters and pointers growing up too. And it's funny because I've got a pair of woodcock mounted that I like to display anytime I'm doing any kind of woodcock discussion. And Dad shot them in 1960 as a true double and got them mounted. So I kind of, how sons are. You borrow things from your dad, right? So I borrowed them years ago. So they're still here. But that exact location now is a big soccer complex right off the side of I-40 now. But it's hard to explain to people that don't do it, the passion that's in there. And I haven't shot a woodcock in over 2 years myself personally. I'm responsible for enough of them guiding, but I very rarely carry a gun anymore, generally only for a photo shoot for this or that or something like that. I just, I don't know. If I didn't love to eat them, I'd never shoot another one. But to me, it's the best game bird out there. It's the best game out there. Done properly, you can't beat the woodcock. So that's just kind of where I am on that. I eat, sleep, and dream it. So.
When did you decide on Gordon's?
Gene Hill wrote a story called The Woodcock Gun, and it was about a little greener with a double barrel with a 24-inch barrel, custom made for a guy. And Gene Hill said in the back of his mind it was made for a good northeastern woodcock hunter. He pictured the old man driving out into his cover in a mule-drawn carriage with a big Gordon setter, sleeping on a pile of hay under the seat, something to that effect. And right then and there, I said, wow, big Gordon setter. I got to try that. So, you do your little bit of research, and I did a very little bit of research. I'm not a very most patient person. I found a litter of Gordons coming up, down in South Carolina somewhere, and called the guy, and he said, yep. So sent him a check, went down a few weeks later and picked up a little female puppy. That was my first one. And that was, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago now, I guess. And she was a magician. She was just absolutely amazing. And I was just getting into really hardcore grouse. And I had her when I lived in Virginia and working up there in the mountains. And she was she pointed grouse. And if I actually happened to hit one, she brought it back and gave it to me. Like, here, that was fantastic. Let's go find another one. I didn't have to, there was no handling or their sense of smell. And I did own a Brittany. I had my American Brittany from a guy named, his name just went right out of my head. Anyway, a gentleman from Goldsboro who's probably long passed away by now, Goldsboro, North Carolina, that had Brittany's, that brought them back after World War II. And and he was a decent dog, just not my style. But his sense of smell compared to that Gordon was nothing. She outperformed him as a puppy all the way up. And I just never looked back. It's just like, and they've been fantastic, and their work ethic is amazing. I don't know. I've hunted over everything except for that Portuguese split nose pointer, and Lynn Carradine, my Yukonuba rep. Lynn always, every time I say that, she just spits out the name of that dog. I can't think of it. But that's probably the only breed I have not hunted over. She knows the breed of everything. You can just describe a dog and she'll tell you the name of it. But like I said, I've hunted over pretty much everything out there, and just nothing's made me change my mind yet. So.
Yep, agreed.
Well, I know you both get to see lots of dogs, and I don't get to see nearly as many as you guys do, but I get to see my fair share, and I know that it's probably just goes right along with kennel blindness of like I've got my monsters, and I don't see myself hunting over anything else by choice. So I can definitely appreciate, once you find what you like, why you'd want to stick with it.
Sure, no doubt.
Debbie, I know you said you got into Gordon's 25 years ago. Did you have a history with many dogs before that?
Yeah, actually, we had a beagle when I was growing up and did a little bit of rabbit hunting with her. She was an outside dog. We didn't really have dogs in the house. I had a pet dog after that. But yeah, I mean, the beagle was really the only, my whole family was really into hounds. My uncle's a big houndsman. And my grandpa actually had a German short hair when I was young, but I think that was the last one that he ever had. So we had a beagle, did some rabbit hunting, but it wasn't until I got my first Gordon that I really got into it. And then I gave my dad a Gordon setter too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I gave him a litter mate to my second Gordon, and he was an amazing hunting dog. So they had a lot of fun together. I got to teach my dad how to hunt with pointing dogs.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
I think somebody somewhere wants me to own beagles because I've had two of them over the course of my life find me in weird places. When I was much younger, I was out running one day in the rain in a thunderstorm, and I felt something tickle my ankle, and I looked down, and there's this little beagle running along kind of behind me. I didn't even know that he was there, and he followed me for 3 miles all the way back to my house, and it was pouring rain by the time I got home and everything. Took off my shirt, my shoes on the front porch, left those out there, and my wife came to the door and she said, "Well, who's your friend?" Said, "Well, I'm not really sure, but he's been with me for 3 miles. I went 3 miles out, 3 miles back, and he found me right at about the turnaround." She said, "Well, what are we gonna do with him?" And I said, "I don't know. He didn't have a collar on him or anything, but he literally sat at the bottom step of our front porch and just stared at us, looking pathetic and tired and everything, and felt horrible for him. So we ended up taking him in for a little bit, and then we adopted him out to a family. Um, we weren't going to have a third dog at the time, and he was obviously somebody's hunting dog. You could tell by the way he was
Yeah.
maintained that he was a kennel dog for sure. And I ran into another beagle, or another beagle ran into me very similarly. Actually, I was taking my dogs out to run them on some public land not far from my house, and as I was reaching into the back of my truck, I felt something at the back of my legs, and I thought it was a bee or something, and I went down to swat, and I felt a little nose, and I turned around, and there's an older beagle, tricolor beagle, just looking at me all funny. Fortunately, this one had a collar with a phone number on, and I was able to contact the
Hmm.
owner, and the owner came out
Sure.
an hour later. Really cool thing though, that led to rabbit hunts anytime I wanted. All I had to do was
Hmm.
call that guy up and say, "Hey,
Nice.
when are we running your hounds again?" so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, we're able to get out on rabbits because I do enjoy. I like the little dogs. They are fun to watch.
Oh,
I
they're
don't.
fantastic.
Oh yeah.
They are. I just love beagles.
Oh, I'll get another one.
Oh really?
Well, I'll get. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'll get another one before I go before I check out. It's fascinating. My neighbors. So our rabbit season ended at the end of February, and my neighbors over here were hunting, and we cut some trees down, so we got a lot of thick. There are tons of rabbits right here, and I heard them coming, and I called one of the guys, and I said, "Come on!" I said, "I'm standing out here, got my hat on," and they hunted right here in the yard, and they ran one, and they weren't meat hunting. We jumped a rabbit, and the guy could have killed it 5 times, but he laughed. He said, "I don't care about that. Let's watch the dogs." And I said, "Man alive, that's fantastic." And he had 6 down, and they were all 13s. That's what we
Oh
call them, the
gosh.
short ones,
Hmm.
the little bitties,
Right.
Yeah.
and they were all beautiful tan black saddles, and they jumped that rabbit and they took off. And if that right there can't turn your blood over and just make you smile, I mean, you don't have to have a gun. It's just like guiding. The dogs point, the bird goes up. That's my job. That makes me smile. I don't care if they kill the bird or not. To be honest, we root for the bird to win. We don't care if they kill the bird or not. That's there. We want the bird to win, just like that. It's the same thing. It's that same fascination of watching a dog do its job. It's the fascinating part. And everybody goes through that structure of their hunting life, where as a kid or as a beginning hunter, and some of us are lucky we were kids. Some of us, some people get into it in their adult years. You want to kill everything. And as a kid, I did. I remember that,
Mm-hmm.
But,
Sure.
like I said, I shot 9 shells this whole last season. And not very
I shot
well.
1.
So, oh, wow. So you can beat me. So
I killed a grouse with it, though, so that's good.
Well, there you go. There you go.
That was
But,
the only bird I shot all season.
And you're batting 1,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could
Probably the
just
only person
retire on
that can say that. but it's more, when you do it enough and over the years or every year, the pursuit becomes the dogs.
Yeah.
The quality of the work. Watching a young dog or a puppy learn the game, or watching the old man, he's only got a year or 2 left in him. Watching him go out there, and he has perfected the game, and he loves the game, and watching him master it and nail a grouse, pin a grouse that very few dogs in the country can do.
Right.
And put it in the air for a client. You don't care if that bird's dead. That's that.
It's
People
about
say,
the
"Well, I got
dog.
to kill the
It's
bird."
about the dog and the dog work.
It is. And people say, "Well, I got to kill the bird for the dog." No, you don't. If you had to do that, nobody would ban woodcock over dogs, because that's the last thing on my mind. It's
my
the
dogs
pursuit.
love the flush.
Oh, golly, yeah, especially Bogey. Freak.
Yes, yes, he really does. He lives for the flush.
Yeah. So that's just the maturation part of hunting and over working over dogs. Same thing with the sheep dogs or whatever. It's watching them get better, watching them master it, watching them do it better every time. That's the important part. I think people get too wrapped up with dead birds and laying out a bunch of birds on a tailgate or hanging them from a fence post and trying to make it. Let me see a video of the dog actually working, so I know it actually did a good job. I don't care about tailgate photos. And like I told you in the email I post, that's really all I post are videos. I don't care about a tailgate picture. That doesn't prove anything to me. We had a St. Bernard, and I hauled his 130-pound butt up on my tailgate and put 2 dead birds on it. Took a picture of it. It was kind of sarcastic, but that was my point. It proves nothing.
Well, Stephen, how many times have you had a client that shot all of their birds over your dogs, pull their dog out, and have the pictures taken with their dog?
More times than I can count.
Yep.
More times than I can count.
Yep. I don't guide nearly as much as you do, but it's happened to me too.
So years ago, I had a guy, and the very first day we hadn't been out of the truck, 10 minutes, and he lost his GPS, his Garmin receiver. And he put his dog up for 3 days, and he did not run it at all. But I want you to know that every afternoon, because he wouldn't run it, and every afternoon he would take his dog out of the box, put those birds on the ground, pose, and make me take a picture of it.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah. And you know what? As a guide, you're people pleasing. You're people pleasing. You just grin and bear it. So it's I guess it's no different from ordering takeout, putting it in a homemade dish like you made it.
Hey, don't be giving away my secrets.
Oh, did he at least give you a good tip, Stephen?
Yeah, actually he did. Yeah, he's a good friend.
Okay, well,
they're super nice.
They're not bad. They're not bad people.
Right. Everybody's got a price, right?
Yeah, right. We're all like that. No, he's a super nice fella, actually, very nice fella.
Sure.
But just those little things that pictures say 1,000 words, but a video tells the truth.
Yep, exactly. Well, and it's easier when you're guiding because you can step back and you can take videos. You've got somebody that's doing the shooting. It's still really hard. I'm not very good at it, and Steven's been doing it for years, and he's gotten he's gotten really good at it, and I'm trying. It's hard, especially with grouse.
Oh, it is. It is. And to get a grouse on the, I just use my iPhone, nothing fancy, but to get a grouse on the phone, it's very tricky. It's hard enough to shoot them with a gun.
It's hard enough to even see them.
But people say all the time, they'll say, what can I do for my young dog? What's the best thing I can do to make it better? I say, leave your gun at home.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Concentrate on the dog. Take a friend. The best thing to do is have another friend that has a young dog, or what, and take turns handling your dog and let the other person shoot. That way you're concentrating on the dog. You're working on the handling. Because if you're out there by yourself, the dog's going to bump a bird. You're so excited. You shoot it anyway. And then you're like, oh, well, one time's not going to hurt anything. But then all you're doing is laying the groundwork.
Right.
Yep,
And from
exactly.
then on, and I would say 95% of guys and gals, 95% of beginning hunters, they don't really care about the dog work. They can take the worst dog on the planet out hunting. They come back with a grouse. They shot it out of the tree. After the dog bumped it, it flew up to a branch and sat there and looked at them. They shot it and killed it. They come home. They take lots of pictures for Facebook, and they are so happy. And everybody thinks the dog work was fantastic. And that made their day. If they're happy, I can't really tell them, they don't care. They don't care that that's not exactly the way we do it. But it's legal, ethical, that's questionable, but whatever. If they're happy, they're happy. So but somewhere in there you have to decide what is better, what's going to make me better, what's going to make my dog better. And leaving my gun at home and concentrating on the dog work is what's going to make my dog better in the long run. I grew up, like I said, growing up hunting with old men, and when they shot a covey rise, they killed two quail every time. Both of them were bobs. They almost never shot a hen. That was the thing. I mean, if you can shoot two quail on a rise, you're picking out two males, out of 15 to 25 birds, whatever, and every one of them was a male. You're like, wow, as a kid, and that's what it was. That's the guys you learn from that were ethical, and they're like, you got to leave the hens to breed. Now, if we can only do that with woodcock and grouse on the flush, you
Right.
can really tell the
Right.
difference.
We try to do that
like
with
a
ducks
pheasant or something. Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Try to pick out the drakes.
But that's definitely, and that's that hopefully helps. I mean, theoretically, it does. If it's a polygamous bird, it definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at the pheasants. One cock pheasant can take care of 12, 15 hens. So
A lot. I know that.
you're
Yeah.
not going to kill all the cock birds. Yeah. So sorry, another tangent.
So I guess we'll get back to Gordon's a little bit. So,
Oops.
no, it's fine. It's fun conversation, of course. Can you get into a little bit into the history of the Gordon setters?
Stephen, I'm going to let you take that. You've got it all memorized.
Sure. Okay. So the Gordons are like the English. You have the English setter, the Irish setter. The Gordon was the Scottish version, but instead of being named after Scotland, it's named after Gordon Castle up in the fourth Duke of Gordon is really credited for turning it into the black and tan dogs that we know today. And historically, it's really not written down anywhere. It said that the fourth Duke bred in the black and tan hound for the quality of scent. And I will say I've and I've got plenty of videos where one of the dogs is pointing and there's another dog out there just running around that doesn't smell the bird. And it, even English setters, I've got loads of those videos. And Jerry doesn't let me post them, but their sense of smell, right,
Yeah.
But their sense of smell is above and beyond the vast majority of all the other bird dogs I've seen, and I believe that. One of the things the Duke forgot about was the black and tan's voice. They're not exactly a quiet dog. The imported dogs really don't bark much. They're not a quiet dog.
But they're talkers. They do
correct.
They do the woo woos all the time. If they're trying to get your attention or they're excited,
they can almost tell you what they
come
want.
up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're very vocal dogs.
And but they're very smart dogs. The Duke also reportedly, one of the tenants on his estate had a border collie named Molly that was reportedly and historically known to be a fantastic setter of the red grouse. So the Duke bought Molly from the tenant and bred her in. And in my border collie books that I'm reading about the border collies, it talks about that back and forth breeding of setters and Gordons and collies. So it's not just the Gordon people that say this. Yep, it's on both sides. Say it's there. So I'd love to actually find out. But somebody sent me an article, I don't know, about a month ago that the Gordon was rated the smartest, most intelligent breed of dogs. Dogs, period, not just bird dogs. And I believe
I saw that. Somebody sent that to me too.
Did you see that too?
Yeah, I did.
Yep.
Was it a Gordon owner that sent it to you?
No. This was actually
mine was my niece.
Just one of my clients.
But I just placed some puppies in January, and I'm always very interested in hearing about how they're developing and any problems, what you like, what you not like. And one of the things that they all say is, I can't believe how smart this dog is. And most of them have never had a Gordon before. One of them is they do canine, like as in for law enforcement. And he was really worried that, getting a dog would not be as smart as the dogs that he's used to training. Right. And he said, I'm not worried about that. It's not true. I can't believe how smart this dog is. And he sends me, videos of training her, to do all these things when she was 8 weeks old. It was insane. So yeah, they are a very smart breed.
And that's but that also is part of their problem, because most of the average breeder, the average trainer, if you send your dog off to this guy that's going to, he trains everything. I train all breeds of pointing dogs, those guys. He says, no, that Gordon, it just doesn't pay attention. I tell him, I said, no, the Gordon got it about the fifth time you did it. And now he's bored. Just bored. He wants to go to the next thing. Exactly. He's bored. He wants to go. He's that really smart. He's the really smart kid in the back of the math class that's getting in trouble because he figured out 2 + 2 was 4 a long time ago. And now he's just bored because you're still trying to convince the other kids that it is. And that's the thing. So when I'm training these puppies, I don't do just one thing at a time. I'm averaging probably throwing 5 things at them in rotation. And they start picking it all up. And I start training my puppies at 5 weeks old. They start hearing whoa. They start learning how to kennel, all of that stuff at 5 weeks old. And it doesn't take any time to train them as a whole litter to kennel. I put the food bowls down. I tell them whoa. And I got, 6, 8 puppies, whatever. They're standing there waiting for me to say, okay, to eat. And then I take it from there, and it's all gradual, but they're constantly learning, and they soak it up faster than anything. I mean, it's just, you're trying to keep up with the dog's learning curve rather than the other way around.
I remember that when you had that litter during the fall at Pine Ridge, that you'd go and run them every day, but you took a video of all of the puppies running in front of you, and you yell whoa, and every puppy stopped. And they were, 8 weeks old? Were they even 8 weeks old?
All 7 of them.
Yeah, they all stopped.
No, all 7 of them. And then wherever they were, I yelled, whoa, they all stopped and looked at me. And
they all turned around. They all turned their heads and looked at you.
Yep. And but they stopped instantly. I said, one time. You don't have to sit there but that's, their intelligence is amazing. And most people, with any breed of dog, they don't train their puppies fast enough with enough information, and those little brains are soaking it up as fast as they can go. And they're so worried about, this is a wing, point this, and that's fun. I get it, that's fun, but put that wing away. The puppies I have, they won't smell or point a bird until I get to Minnesota. I'll do all their obedience over the spring and summer, and the first birds they smell are grouse and woodcock, and that's it. But going back to the Gordon, so the Gordons were bred. I tell people they're the original grouse dog. The Duke bred them to hunt the red grouse of Scotland. Before we were even a country, they were hunting red grouse over there over Gordon setters. So William Webster imported the first two. Webster's Dictionary and all that. He imported the first two, Rake and Rachel, and he lived up in New England somewhere. That I don't remember. And the rest is history. Around the turn of the 1900s, they were the top breed used by the market hunters for grouse and woodcock, because they hunted every day, they hunted all day, they had a great natural retrieve, and they didn't lose birds. And you have to imagine these guys' job was to bring birds to the market. And in Washington, D.C., around 1900, a guy, you could get $2.50 for two woodcock, which you can imagine. That was a lot of money back then for two little birds. Yeah. So that was how the guys made his living. As the advent of the field trial came on, and there's a little bit of argument whether the Gordon won the first field trial or it's actually called a native setter, but it was a black setter. So it just depends on who you ask. As a Gordon guy, I'll say, yeah, it was a Gordon.
Of course.
An English, of course it was. An English pointer guy is going to say, no, it had nothing to do with Gordons. People are funny about their dogs. I promise you that. But as the field trials came on, and obviously the first dog to the birds is going to be the one that points them. As the race was bred into dogs, the Gordon setter just kind of got left behind because he was still out there pointing for the market. He was still out there earning a living for his master, and that's kind of what I'm getting back to, because most people don't care about field trials anymore. Nobody rides horses to go field trial, and that's honestly, and we never field trialed the bird dogs, just the labs. But nobody does that. I mean, it's falling out of favor. Field trialers are having a hard time selling their Gordons, but those of us that are breeding hunting dogs, we got a waiting list. So,
yeah,
that's what people are looking for. They're trying to get back to that old school and a little bit bigger dog than the big whippy Western bred of Gordons. We're breeding a little bit bigger, heavier dogs. And those dogs run bigger. They have to. They got to cover a lot of ground. But the cover dogs like we have are, 75 yards max.
Yeah, we don't want them out too far.
Stretch his legs, but yeah. So, but they're very their job. They're very diligent in their job. They know what their job is. I don't have any problem with off games. I don't have any problem with fur, things like that. They know what they're looking for. They know their job. They do their job happily every single day.
Mm-hmm. So they're very serious. Bogey is the biggest goofball. He's constant entertainment, but when he's in the woods, it is all business. He is deadly serious, and I love that switch.
A lot of people say their dogs have an off switch. I say Gordons have an on switch. They're generally turned off. I got 9 out there in the kennel right now, just lying there on their bellies, just sleeping. But if I go out there and if I took a bell out, I had 9 bouncing around ready to roll. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
yep.
It's just like you. You're in the morning, you get like, oh, got to go to work, and you're fine, nice and relaxed. And when you get to work, though, boom, it's time to work. Let's go. That's how they are.
I'm going to steal on switch from you. That's going into my regular vernacular now. A lot of people ask about, I was out at Pheasant Fest, and I was out representing small Munsterlanders, and had my female there up on the table, and she's just chill. She's laying down, relaxed, and people are like, "Is she like this all the time?" I said, "Well, yeah, pretty, in the house, of course she is." Well, can she hunt? Come on out with me sometime. I'd love to show you. But I always talk about, the off switch. I get her in the house. I send her to her place. She lays down and she's chill until the Amazon guy comes by. But she'll relax again. But I like how you framed it. Yeah, I know, right? But I do like how you framed the on switch, because you're right. That's actually a much better way to look at it, because our dogs aren't hunting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? They actually hunt a very small percentage of their life when you think about, time spent hunting versus doing everything else. So I think the on switch is a better way to look at it. I wrote it down and I circled it. So that's important.
There you go. That's important. But it's true, and you are exactly right that our dogs spend way more. Even my dogs, and I guide from mid-September to the end of January, and I run through I run through February, and then into May banding woodcock. So even my dogs spend more time not hunting than hunting, and you've got to have a relaxed dog. I don't understand these people that want these field trial American bred labs. Who wants to sit in a duck boat with a dog that's about to have a heart attack constantly?
Oh my goodness!
You wonder why so many people are importing British labs now, because they're calm. They just sit there and wait for a command. It's the same thing.
Sure. Yeah, we've bred too much drive into our dogs in some instances.
No doubt.
The Gordons can run pretty big, upwards of 80 pounds. Your cover dogs are generally a little bit smaller than that.
Well, I'll go ahead and take this one, because Arlo, my imported male, is 7. He's 75 pounds, and he's big. He's a big dog.
Boy, yeah.
He's a big boy. The European dogs do run bigger, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with it.
They're more the dual, they're field and bench.
Sure, yeah.
People will laugh. They'll go, "Wow, that's a big dog. Can he get through the woods?" And I just look at him. I go, "Well, wolves do okay, and they're 150 pounds. So, I guess he'll do okay." But he's a very natural, smooth running dog. I like a bigger dog. They hold up better. They're solid. Like I tell people all the time, you don't see a small running back in the NFL 2 seasons in a row. The guys, they get beat up. A cover dog gets beat up, and I just think that a larger, more solid, strength, well built, muscle wise dog. And Arlo is actually going back to his appearance is perfect, but he is solid. And he takes the beating, and they do get beat up. They constantly bumping into things, but they know how to move through the woods. And even though he's a big dog, he moves through the woods very well. And even my small bitches are 45-pound dogs. That's about right?
He's kind of lanky, and I always think of him as being sort of slinky. Yeah. He doesn't pound through the woods. How do you describe that?
He glides. He glides very well. He moves beautifully.
Yes, he does. Yeah. He's got incredible movement.
Yeah. And that's part of it too. That's part of conformation is movement, and I do agree with some of that part of it. But he moves very well. But going back, I think size helps them hold up. It's a tough way to make a living for a bird dog too, and I just But that being said, Cronin's a little with it. She's 40 pounds soaking wet, and she goes all day every day up there, and she doesn't hunt as much back down here when I give her back to my son. That's my son Hunter's dog. And, she spends the rest of the winter lying around with a denim sweater on or something. But she's a much smaller dog. That's Bogey's sister, and, Debbie's dog. And she does fine. So who knows? Contradicted myself.
We've got both ends of the spectrum, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Most of the field, there's a split in Gordon setters. Obviously, there's the bench and there's the field, and then there's the dual in between, which I think both of us are. That's kind of where we're trying to be. Having good-looking dogs that can perform really well in the grouse woods.
Sure.
Most of the field-bred dogs, I think most of the males would probably be in the 50s and the females in the 40s.
At the most.
I think that's pretty typical.
At the most. I know some of these small little like field trial females they're maybe pushing 30 pounds now, and that's it.
Some are small.
That's not even in breed standard. I believe off the top of my head, I want to say breed standard, the minimum is 40 for females. Is that right? So that's really small. You're looking at these sub 30-pound dogs. That's just a really small, thin dog, and it's fine. By breed standard, it says the Gordon is the heaviest boned of the setters, built for all day labor. They're supposed to be big, solid dogs that can go out and tromp up and down the moors of Scotland all day, every day. That's what they were bred for originally. And I don't own a patent on the Gordons. I didn't invent them. I don't know that I'm perfecting them. I'm trying to stick to what they're, in my opinion, what they're supposed to be.
I do like watching a big dog run too. We've got in our NAVDA chapter, We've got some Broncos. We've got some Spinonis. And after running my little small Munsterlander, the smallest of the versatile breeds, if you have a Bronco run after, like right after that, it's a totally different experience following that dog. Yeah. What's funny is they look slow, but they're not. They're covering just as much ground just as fast. They just don't have to move their legs as quickly to do it.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the little French Brittany's running through the woods, the stuff they're having to really jump up and over, a big dog like Arlo or Blue, even Blue's a big dog, they just step over it. You have to look at the wear and tear on these joints of these little dogs that are having to leap over everything, whereas a big dog just kind of steps over it right in stride without even breaking stride. That to me, that is the longevity of a dog. Blue's 60 pounds or so, 55, 60 pounds. And, like I said, he's getting ready to turn 12 and he's still going with no problems. He really doesn't limp. He might limp a little bit after a long day in the woods, but, so do I. So I can't give him grief for that. So,
sure.
But that's part, that's part of it. These little French Brittany's that are just having to cover, take so many strides to cover ground, and they're just working like crazy. They don't have all day in them. There's no way a French Brittany is going to hunt all day like that.
Right.
That's just part of the breed standard and what the Gordon really was stood for back in the day.
When I first started doing the research, the woodcock research for the university, I had one dog and we had to run all day. So, I mean, he obviously was in condition, but, we would take a couple-hour break in the middle of the day and then we'd go right back out in the afternoon. And he did great because he had this solid, steady pace. He was about 62 pounds. And he went all day, every day.
We ask a lot of our dogs, especially certain times of the year.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So.
Well, then I had to get more dogs,
You never have just one.
We're going to pause here for time. Be sure to check back in a few days for part 2 of this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed episode number 9 of the WoPost podcast. The best ways to support the podcast are to share with a friend or leave a 5-star review on Apple. You can always become a patron at patreon.com/thewOPost. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram at The WoPost, at www.thewopost.com, or email bill@thewopost.com. Stay steady and God bless.